In less than 72 hours, we begin the season of Lent. A great season. We'll talk about that in a minute. Now, this is the last Sunday of Ordinary Time. We won't go back to Ordinary Time until sometime in June, and we celebrate the Feast of Pentecost. 8th Sunday of Ordinary Time, just in cycle. It wasn't meant to introduce Lent, but I think there are two themes in today's gospel that are really challenges for a good Lent. I think Jesus must have been a great psychologist. He knew the human heart. He knows the human person. When he has that interesting, kind of talk, the first part of today's gospel. Why do you notice the splinter in your friend's eye and do not perceive the wooden beam, the 2x4 in your own eye? Now, an exaggeration, but isn't that often the case for us? We love to point out other people's faults. We love to criticize the other person so that people don't look at us and see our own faults. You've heard the phrase, it takes one to know one. So I know my faults, and I know when I see those same faults in others because I know them, what they're all about. So easy to pick on other people, to criticize them. But Jesus said, don't be a hypocrite. I think that'd be a really horrible insult for Jesus to look at me and say, Bill, you're a hypocrite. I'd be cut to the core. So how do we stop being hypocrites? Jesus said, look at your own eye first. Remove that wooden beam from your eye first, and only then should you worry about your neighbor's faults. So that's the first challenge of this coming Lent. Let's look into our own selves. So I want you sometime today, tomorrow, or Tuesday at the latest, to look into a mirror. Not the mirror in your bedroom or a mirror in other parts of your house. A spiritual mirror. A mirror of your interior self. And what is that wooden beam, that 2x4? What is that in your eye? What is that in your person? What's some fault you want to work on during this season of Lent? Don't worry about other people's faults. Let's look at our own. That's what Lent is all about. Lent is the annual season to make a change in our lives. Hopefully a change that will be better by Easter. We'll never be perfect, but every Lent should be better than the Lent before. Life is a pilgrimage. Conversion is a lifelong journey. And so what about you needs some change? The word Lent comes from an old English word meaning lengthen, because during Lent, the days get longer. The shortest day of the year was December 21st. March 20th is the beginning of spring. After March 20th, days get longer and longer and longer until June 21st, the first day of summer. So the church calls this season Lent because it's the lengthening time of the year. Another way to call this season is spring, the springtime of the year. And a lot of us do some things in spring now that winter is over. Now, we had a very mild winter here in Las Vegas, but back east they're still having rough winters. I remember the few years I did live in Toledo, that when the snow melted and it was warmer, we could open the doors, open the windows, and bring in the fresh air. And my mom always had this horrible idea of spring cleaning. So, what about spring cleaning for Lent? What do you need to clean from your spiritual home? What's that wooden beam that you need to get rid of? So that's challenge number one, the next 3 days before Ash Wednesday morning. What's the wooden beam? What are the mistakes? What are the faults? What are the sins you need to work on? What kind of spiritual spring cleaning will you do in this house here? My home, my body, my person, my personality. Then we have that great image of trees producing good fruit or bad fruit, depending on how well they're taken care of. About 11 months ago, Father Jojo, Father AJ, and I moved into a new house. So a friend, a parishioner, gave me a plant as a housewarming gift. And I said, oh, that's pretty scary. Most plants, when they come to my house, call it hospice. It's their last step on life's journey. But somehow, that plant is still living 11 months later. I know nothing about plants. Father Jitter has like 82 plants. They're all flourishing wonderfully. So I have this plant on my nightstand, and there's a window behind it, so I know that plants need food, need sun and water. So every morning I feel it, and I have a water jar next to my table. I pour a little water on if it's dry. I make sure the shade is open, get sun, and it's still flourishing. I'm amazed. Well, Jesus said that we must do that with our lives. get rid of the bad fruit and make sure we produce good fruit. So that's another way, another challenge of Lent. What's the bad fruit in your life? What's the rotten fruit? Again, sins, laziness, gossip, whatever it is. How can we prune that from our lives so we produce good fruit? And what is good fruit? We have it in the fruit of the Holy Spirit. Kindness, gentleness, patience, forgiveness, compassion, love, mercy. That's all the good fruit that we should be producing. That's challenge number 2. Can I do some spiritual pruning of my life? Get rid of the dead leaves, get rid of the dead wood, get rid of the rotten fruit, and produce good fruit as well. So that's what Lent is all about. You know, we talk about Lent coming up. What am I going to give up for Lent? And many people give up all kinds of things, and if they make it all 40 days of Lent, that's strong willpower. But I say be careful. How about giving up things that you should give up for life? Maybe gossip, maybe laziness, maybe an addiction. And maybe you can't get rid of those problems in 40 days, but maybe they're less frequent. But maybe instead of giving up, how about just giving? You know, we talk about 3 ways to give: time, talent, treasure. Can you give more time to people in your life during Lent? Slow down. You know, we spent quality time at Thanksgiving and Christmas. That's months behind us now. Spend time with your spouse, your children, your parents, your siblings, your friends. Make time. Give them time. Do that during Lent. Isn't that interesting, Lent? Instead of giving up something and feeling miserable for 40 days, I can give myself and have a joyous time with family and friends. And how about giving talent? You know, we're going to have a day at Catholic Charities. We can take 50 people there. Do you want to give yourself to that? Give yourself to doing some outreach ministry, whether here in the church, in your neighborhood, at school, whatever. Give of your talents. Give of your good things. And the last is giving your treasure. Certainly to be charitable here at Holy Spirit, but you have many other charities which you can give your treasure to. So Lent should not be a season we dread. It should not be something we give things up. We're miserable for 40 days. It should be a season of renewal, springtime, fresh air. So the 2 challenges from today's gospel are pretty clear. What can you do to make sure that Lent is a good time? That Lent is a time when you get rid of that wooden beam, that 2x4 in your eye, get rid of all those things. Look in that mirror and say, I need to change this. And Lent is a time to get rid of the bad fruit, produce good fruit. And not only will it be a good Lent, it'll be a very joyous Easter. Have a good Lent.